Section 4.2 continued. Moving on with our next 6 identities. So the quotient identities, reciprocal identities are the first 8. Even odd identities are the next 6. Those will comprise the first 14 identities, which will be on your first identity quizzes. Even odd identities. If you remember back to when we were testing to see whether a function was even or odd. Say I have this function. The test to see if it was even or odd is we would put negative x in for x. We would simplify. And we would compare that new function with the original function. If it was exactly the same, we knew it was an even function. If it was exactly the opposite, it was an odd function. If it was neither the same nor the opposite, then it was neither even nor odd. In this case, if you can remember that cosine is your only even function of the 3 out of sine, cosine, and tangent, you should know all 6 of these identities. So that means cosine of negative t then is just simply going to be the same as cosine of t. Sine of negative t and tangent of negative t then have to be odd, so we know that we have to get out the opposite of the function. So sine of negative t is negative sine t, and tangent of negative t is negative tangent of t. So cosine is the only even function. And now our reciprocal functions act the same way as their reciprocal counterparts. So secant is going to act the exact same way as cosine. So secant of negative t is simply secant of t. Cosecant is going to act like sine, opposite of cosecant. Cotangent is going to act like tangent, so negative cotangent of t. Those are the next 6. Again, remember, cosine is the only even function. You should know all 6 based upon that if you understand even and odd. Given that the cosine of negative t is negative 7/8, evaluate each of the following. So this is just using our identities now. Cosine is an even function, so it does not matter whether I find the cosine of t or the cosine of negative t, we're going to get the same value. So if cosine of negative t is negative 7/8, the cosine of t is also going to be negative 7/8. Secant now is just the reciprocal, remember, of cosine. So secant of negative t is going to be the reciprocal of the cosine of negative t, so this is going to be negative 8/7. Sine of t is negative 7/8. Evaluate each of the following. Well, sine is an odd function, so the sine of t is negative 7/8. That means the sine of negative t is going to be the opposite, positive 7/8. Cosecant of negative t is going to be the reciprocal of the sine of negative t. So that's going to be 8/7. So for the first problems in the homework, that's all you're doing is using those even odd identities to evaluate some functions. Second part then is going to be calculator. Now, in your calculator, anytime you use the sine, cosine, or tangent buttons on the calculator, you have to pay attention to whether you have a degree measure or a radian measure. Every single time you touch the sine button, the cosine button, or the tangent button, you should be thinking to yourself, am I in the correct mode on the calculator? Because if you're not, you will not get the correct answers. So let's take a look at these. First of all, how many of these are degree measures? How many are radians? The only ones that are degree measures are letters B and E. Second common mistake, besides being in the incorrect mode that I will see with these types of problems, are for these last 3, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. There is no cosecant, secant, or cotangent button on your calculator. You have to use your reciprocal identities and plug them in as such when you do this. So cosecant of 2 pi, we have to punch in as 1 over the sine of 2 pi. Secant of 320 degrees is 1 over the cosine of 320 degrees. And cotangent of 4 is 1 over the tangent of 4. So that's how you must plug those in when we get to those. So let's go through and do the 2 with degrees first on the calculator. So on our calculator here, cosine of 240, check your mode first of all. Right now, this calculator is in radian mode, so I'm going to arrow down, highlight degrees, hit enter. That changes now to degree mode. And now we can punch in the stuff just like we see it. Cosine of 240 is negative 1/2. Secant of 320, we need to put in as 1 divided by the cosine of 320. We get 1.305. So let's go ahead and record those. Cosine of 240, negative 1/2. Secant of 320, 1.305. Now let's go and do the 4 that are in radian measures. So in the calculator, we need to make sure that we change back our mode into radian. So highlight radian, hit enter. And now plug them in. Sine of negative pi over 3. Negative 0.866. Tangent of 2 pi over 3. Negative 1.732. Cosecant of 2 pi is 1 divided by the sine of 2 pi. We get an error. It says we cannot divide by 0. And let's look at the last one before we talk more about that. 1 divided by the tangent of 4. Okay, let's go ahead and record each of these. First one, sine of negative pi over 3 was negative 0.866. Tangent of 2 pi over 3 was negative 1.732. Cosecant was 1 over 0. 1 divided by 0 is undefined. And letter F, 1 over the tangent of 4 was 0.864. Okay, going back up here to D. 1 over the sine of 2 pi. Let's think about that. Sine of 2 pi, we rotate once all the way around, takes us to that quadrantal angle, which is at 1, 0. Sine we know is the y coordinate, so that's how we get 1 over 0 there, and that's why you get an error when you plug that into your calculator.